Hello and welcome to Maki's Closet. On today's tutorial, I'll be sharing a requested video of how to draft and sew a mermaid skirt with a cut together train or tail. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. So let's start. First step you're going to take is to fold your fabric, and I folded with 16, so you can fold with 18 inches if you want a maximum flay at the A-line part, at the lower part of your skirt. So what I'm going to do now is to place, and I will mark my hip point, which is 7 inches down from the waistline. So you can go ahead and mark 8 inches if you're a much taller person. From there, you're going to mark your waist to knee point. So from that point, I'm going to go up by 1.5 inches. You can go ahead and leave it at the knee point. But the reason why I'm doing that is I want my flay or A-line to start from this point, so that before it proceeds towards the knee, I'm going to have like a little fitted effect at that point. Now I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to mark the total length of my skirt. Now the total length of my skirt is 38 inches, and I'm going to be marking 2 extra inches at the lower part, which can serve as a folding allowance or turn up allowance. Now I'm going to be using a crinoline to turn up my skirt, and for this particular skirt I'm going to be using a half lining also. So after marking at that point, the next thing you're going to do right now is to start inserting your body measurements. So at the waistline, I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. So my waist circumference divided by 4 is 7 inches. That's 28 divided by 4. I have 7 inches. So whenever I'm making a corset or a bustier, I don't add that to the skirt. So I'm just going to mark my waist circumference and go ahead and mark 2 inches allowance to my skirt. Going down to the hip point, I'm going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4, which is 40 divided by 4. I have 10. And I'm going to mark 2 inches for sewing allowance also. Then going down, whatever I have on my hip, which is 40 divided by 2, 10 plus 2 inches sewing allowance, making it 12. I'm going to minus 1.5 inches from there, and I'm going to mark it at the lower part. So minusing 1.5 inches from 12 inches, I have 10.5. So I'll be marking 10.5 inches at this part. That line I went up by 1.5 inches from, and I'll extend it down to my knee line. Now the next step is to connect from my waist down to my hip, and from my hip down to that line. And going down from there, I'm going to just draw a line connecting to the lower part of my skirt. So now if you have a rule, you can just go ahead to use that, but if you don't, you can just go ahead to use a freehand sketch, just like I am doing. So after I'm done cutting out, after I'm done drawing out, the next step I'm going to take is to use my scissors, and I'm going to trace out and cut all this out. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please hit on the subscribe button. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always supporting my channel. So after I'm done cutting out my skirt, this is what I have. And the next step is to cut the back pattern. Right? To cut this, I'm going to place this fabric, or the fabric for the front part, on another fabric this way. And when you're doing this, you have to make sure that you have enough fabric to make this. So I'm just going to make sure the hip point and the ending of the other part is touching the end of that fabric. And the next thing I'm going to do right now is to go ahead and add my zipper allowance. So for my zipper allowance, I'm making use of 1 inch, and because I'm going to turn it up with a lining, I'll add ½ inch. So I'll be making use of 1.5 inch. So you can go ahead to use just 1 inch to 2 inches for your zipper allowance, which is also okay. So I'm just going to add 1 inch to the front part of this skirt, and from that point I went up by 1.5 inches. I'll start drawing my flay to the lower part of this fabric, but for now I'm going to leave that, and we're going to focus on the lower part. So starting from this point, I'm just going to measure about 15 inches. So you can mark 10 inches, 15 inches, 20 inches. or more, depending on how wide you want the lower part to be, how long you want it to be. You can also use a cut and spread method, but this is actually easier if you're a beginner and you want to cut an A-line skirt or mermaid skirt with train. So after marking that, you're going to extend that line you have at the upper part to this part, but because I'm going to be turning this up with a crinoline, I'm just going to go ahead and add few inches to it also this way. So this is what I have after I'm done, and the next thing I'm going to do is just to extend that line I have at the upper part, just like I said. So please, when you're folding or when you're cutting your skirt, make sure you pin it down to avoid it shifting. So from that 1.5 I went up, I'm going to start extending my skirt down to the lower part this way. So after I'm done, this is what I have, and the next step is just to go ahead to use my scissors, and I'm going to cut this out. So after I'm done cutting my skirt, this is what I have for the front and what I have also for the back. Right now I'm going to cut out the lining and I'm going to turn it. So I'm going to be making use of a half lining. This is where my lining is going to stop. You can go ahead and make use of a full lining also if you want. So now I'm going to be turning my skirt with a crinoline at the lower part, and I'll just go ahead to open up my skirt this way, and I'll place the lining on it, and I'm going to stitch with half inch on both sides. Going over to the back pattern, I will also repeat the same process, place my lining on it, and I'm going to stitch with half inch at both sides of the back pattern, because I have two pieces at the back, so you'll be repeating the same thing for both of them at the back. So after I'm done joining, this is what I have for the back piece, and what I'm going to do right now is to go ahead and I will measure about 8 inches or 7 inches, and I'll stitch with 1 inch going down. So at the upper part, I will be inserting my zip. So after I'm done joining the zipper and I've sewed the lower part, this is what I have. Next step is I will be placing the front part on it. So when you're placing the front part on it, you're going to make sure it aligns, especially where the front meets the back. At that point, you're going to make sure you pin it down and make sure it aligns before you can go ahead to start shaping it. So you can go ahead and push in the back a little so that it's going to meet, and you're going to go ahead to pin down the front to the back also. That's very important. After pinning, this is what I have, and the next step right now is to shape the skirt. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and place my tape, and I'm going to measure 7 inches. On a much taller person, you can use 8 inches, and I'm going to mark that 7 inches. So the next step I'll take is to insert my waist circumference. So the waist circumference I have is 28 divided by 2. I have 14 inches. So measuring what I have on this point, I have 17 inches, and I'm going to minus that 14 inches from that 17, and what I have is 3 inches left. So that 3 inches, I'm going to share it on both sides of my skirt. So that will be 1.5 on this part, then I'll place and measure, and I'll go ahead and mark the rest of the 14 inches. So this is what I have on both sides. Going over to the hip point, I'm going to place and measure what I have at the hip circumference, and what I have there is 22 and a half, and my hip is 40 divided by 2. I have 20 inches. So I'll minus 20 inches from 22 and a half. What I have is 2.5 inches left, so I'll be sharing that 2.5 inches left. So what I have on both sides is 1.25. I'll mark that then place and mark my hip circumference, and I'm going to connect to the upper part of my waist. So after I'm done connecting that, the next step I'm going to take right now is to go down on the lower part of my skirt. On that point, I'll be going in by 1.5 inches at both sides, and I'll go ahead and mark that same 1.5 inches. You can go ahead and mark 2 inches if you want it to be fitted, or you can as well mark 1 inch if you want it to be very free. It just depends on what you want. Then I'll connect it back to my hip, and from that point I'm going to start marking it, and I'm going to slant it down to the lower part. So you can go ahead and use 1 inch or half inch to slant down. So I'm going to be using 1 inch, and I'm going to mark it down. So while I'm marking it, as I'm going towards the lower part, I'm going to slant it till I have about half inch at the lower part, which will be joining to the back part, the front part and the back part together. So after I'm done doing this, I'm going to go to the other side also, and I'm going to start with 1 inch, then slant it to half inch, joining the lower part of the front skirt and the back part of the skirt, and I'll go ahead and stitch on it. So in the next video, I'll be showing you how to attach a crinoline to a skirt, and also how to sew the upper part of this dress. So after I'm done sewing, this is what I have. So at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment at the comment section, and see you in our next video. Thanks.